Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I saw this headline yesterday on New York Post, and I didn't think about including it in a video. And so many people, including my wife, sent me the article. I thought, I'll start here with rampaging monkeys kill 250 dogs in India in a revenge massacre. And so what the story says is there is a town where, they have all these wild dogs. And I've talked about them in past videos. There's a lot of these dogs that are like medium-sized dogs, bigger than the dog this monkey's carrying here. Here, let this video play. From New York Post, here's a picture of a monkey taking a dog. And, some of these medium-sized dogs, that's a good... usually dogs are like yellow. Sometimes they're black, but usually yellow. Sometimes they're spotted and things like this. But most of them are yellow. Sort of like a smaller version of like a dingo. And these medium-sized dogs are sort of roam the streets, and they're pretty passive, and they kill each other's puppies and things like this. Like there's a period of time where my walk from the ashram, the meditation hall where we would meditate, there would be these back roads, some streets. There was 3 or 4 female dogs that had litters of puppies, right? Just street dogs. And, I'd walk by, you see the puppies, and then the puppies started to die. It was brutal, right? Like I would be like walking to the ashram going, I hope I don't see a dead puppy today. It was like a month of dead puppies. And the reason is that the dogs would kill each other's puppies or they would starve to death. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of things. But there was all these wild dogs. And then we had the flood, and the dogs disappeared. There was that time my, son had dengue fever, and he had these convulsions. And I was really sick at the time. I went outside to get a cab, and there was this guy who was a healer. He was a, kind of an acupuncturist. There's an ancient Indian form of energy work that acupuncture is based in. And, this guy did that work. He was, he had like healing energy. He was, a smart guy. It was late at night, and like I had a fever like of like 102, and I went out to get a cab to see if I could go bring our son to see him, right, or bring him to see our son. Our son was just convulsing, right, because you get this with dengue fever, you get up to like 106-degree fever. The fever is dengue is resistant to heat, and so whatever kind of bug it is, heat kills, right, but you need to get your body up to a high temperature to kill it. And it, can affect your blood vessels and things. People die from it. And so I'm out looking for a cab, and these dogs that were regularly passive started to bark. Like they were like a mob of dog. I mean, they were all barking at me. There was like, little packs of dog here and, another one, over there, right? And like these dogs are so like passive now. But anyways, there's these wild dogs, but also they have monkeys. My kids went to this temple where there were monkeys, and they went with like a family, and there was a bunch of kids went with them. And, one of the kids had an ice cream, and a monkey just walked up and snatched it, right? Like there's these monkeys, they'll be at universities or temples or sometimes small villages, and the monkeys kind of have the run of the place, right? Like Babaji used to carry a stick around to beat the monkeys. Like the monkeys are like complete thugs, right? They just, they steal food from people, and they're, whatever they are. And so you have these wild street dogs, and in this story, it said one of the wild street dogs ate a monkey baby. A couple of them took a monkey baby, and the monkeys weren't having any of it. So they've been grabbing the street dogs and bringing up to the top of buildings and chucking them off, right? Like some of these monkeys are big. That's a small monkey here. But you'll see some of them are big. And, we stayed at a place where there's I don't know what you call it, a pack of monkeys. I don't know what the correct term is. After the flood, we stayed at this university, and they had these monkeys, and they're quite big. They got these sharp teeth, and, they're pretty strong. I mean, and, like I had some video of them, but it didn't. Somehow I lost it. They have a bad attitude, right? Like people pretty much have to stay out of their way, and there'll be like 30 monkeys walking past you in a horde, and you just sort of have to like avoid them. And if you have any food, they're taking it, right? I mean, you could fight them for it, but like who wants to do that, right? But anyways, apparently these monkeys killed 250 dogs. Okay, so I have an update here from I don't know, a couple days ago, maybe yesterday, probably yesterday. Chargers tight end Donald Parham expected to be released from hospital after terrifying head injury. Update: tight end Donald Parham stayed overnight at UCLA Harbor Medical Center for observation after being diagnosed with a concussion. He is resting comfortably, alert, and will likely be discharged from the hospital later today. So, I mean, that's like best case scenario. He had a concussion, but him flopping around the field like that, I mean, it was just pretty brutal, right? Then I want to get into how CNN sucks. So this is from Fox News. Fox News ratings outdraw CNN and MSNBC combined for the 17th straight week. Now, to be fair, Fox News is the only Republican right-wing leaning network out of the three. They all equally suck, right? There are other offshoots like Newsmax and whatever that other one is, right? But they don't have the kind of reach that Fox News does. But Fox News averaged 1.5 million viewers, and that sucks. Like, I get that that's per show, but MSNBC averaged 684,000 views and finished fourth, and CNN settled for sixth place with 500,000 views. I mean, they're in sixth place compared to other so-called news networks. I mean, they're not even in third, right? Like, think how bad CNN sucks, that MSNBC is obliterating it with 184,000 more views, which makes up 2/5. I mean, 200,000 views is 2/5 of CNN's total amount of views, right? And with the kind of reach they are, with being on cable and DirecTV and, the brand recognition and the name recognition, compared to what people are watching on the internet, right, in terms of social media type of journalism and pundits and, people expressing themselves, they are getting waxed. I mean, something like 318 million people in the United States, and they can only get 500,000 to watch their crappy shows, right? It shows you that their networks are dead. They seem legitimate. They seem like, oh, they're an authority, but they're, not even being watched. And most of these people are older people. Like, most of these people are 70 and above, right? Like, the majority of their audience is old people. So it's not even the relevant demographics. They're getting almost no views from younger people, and the prize demographic between like 18 and 35 or whatever it is. And so, like, it's dead. Their networks are dead. And the reason for this is, well, first of all, let's see this. Fox News easily wins November ratings as cable news networks see steep declines because people don't care anymore, right? And in the key demographic, CNN only has 148,000 viewers, and MSNBC has 140,000 viewers. And so it's like they don't exist. These networks don't exist, right? I mean, it is like, this is back in, cable news is dead, right? They've lost to the internet. People don't get their information and don't trust cable news anymore. And this is the reason why. Damning report about Trump's response to COVID-19. Now, there was a time when so many people hated Trump that CNN was in its heyday, right? The last 4 years with Trump. But they haven't moved on to something else, right? They don't have something that is as compelling as Trump. Like, Trump made their network, right? Trump was their star. And now people have moved on from Trump. Like, even Trumpers, to some extent, have moved on from Trump.
A House Oversight Committee report claims Trump administration officials made, quote, deliberate efforts to undermine the nation's coronavirus response for political purposes. CNN's.
Oh, so you're saying that the Democrats and you guys didn't use COVID and are still not using COVID for political gains, right? Like the hypocrisy is off the charts, right? Everybody tried to use COVID. Everyone tries to use everything for their political agenda. I mean, that's politics.
Sunlen Servati just got her hands on this report. Sunlen, I know you're pouring through it right now, but give us the top lines you've seen so far.
Yeah, John, this is so far a very damning report.
A damning report done by Democrats, right? And the Democrats were in their heyday when they had Trump, right? Because they didn't have an answer. They didn't have a compelling politician. I mean, they had Bernie Sanders, but he wasn't ever going to be able to generate enough support as a socialist. And so he had a enthusiastic fan base, but none of these other candidates did. The party is failing. Again, I'm not a Republican. Like, I don't care, right? But CNN is definitely sucking worse, as are the Democrats, because they keep on, I mean, Trump, right? Like, everyone's moved on but you. Like, you're obsessed with it. And it's not winning. You're not bringing in viewers, which is what your job is to, I mean, if you're not going to be real and sincere journalists, then you at least could be compelling enough to attract people to want to watch your show, but your show sucks so bad. I mean, not just this show, all of them.
Of how the Trump administration handled their COVID response. This is a report from the House Oversight Committee. They conducted months and months of interviews with former...
Okay, well, I wish I could sat through all of them because that would be wonderful. Let's hear about them. Let's hear about these months and months of interviews.
Trump administration officials who were there during the pandemic response. And this report out of the committee concludes that, quote, Trump administration officials engaged in a staggering pattern of political interference.
Staggering pattern of political interference, but like they didn't use COVID at all. Like the media and the Democrats didn't use COVID as a weapon to oust Trump out of his White House and to like wreck the economy and, the fear and push, these different types of, medical agendas. No, they didn't do any of that. They're above that kind of behavior.
In the pandemic response and failed to heed early warnings about the looming crisis. These decisions placed countless Americans' lives at risk, undermined the nation's public health institutions, and contributed to one of the worst failures of leadership in American history. And
this is, a House that's dominated by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. So, like, they're making this sound like it's news and it's true, right? I mean, it's true from the extent that it's true, but it isn't, in context of how they're all slime. The media's slime, all the politicians are slime, right? And, like, somehow Donald Trump is worse than the rest of the slime.
The report cites, according to the committee, many powerful anecdotes that they say they gathered.
Powerful anecdotes that blow your socks off. You hear these anecdotes and your socks just get blown right off. Wow, that anecdote was powerful. I never heard an anecdote so powerful as that one.
Over the course of the administration's response, including Trump administration officials, they say blocking numerous officials from speaking publicly about the state of the pandemic. In one case, the report cites that Trump was so angered by a briefing that he blocked CDC officials from briefing the public for 3 months.
Whoa, that's some damning anecdote there. Whoa, those CDC guys who are just above board, they're not shills for big pharma or anything like that and don't have an agenda of their own. And so, they were just good people trying to save lives.
And I'm going to be saving lives and they're going to be lying.
And I'm going to be saving lives and they're going to be lying.
And I'm going to be saving lives and they're going to be lying.
Another anecdote, again, that the committee states in this report said that another official wanted to hold a briefing about recommendations to wear face masks and also brief about the status of deaths and cases among pediatric cases. And
look at him shake his head. Look at this clown shake his head.
And that Trump specifically blocked that request. This report also really does shine a light.
It shines a light. This report shines a light. See, this is why CNN doesn't have any viewers. Because people have moved on from their one note, like their one-hit wonder, which is Trump sucks and he's, evil, and he's responsible for all of it, right? Like that's their their one-hit wonder, and they're just ridiculous, right? Like it sucks to watch. It drains the life out of you. It's inauthentic. They're not real people. They're not able to connect to anybody, and it's dying. Like they can wear their somber ties and whatever the hell's going on here. They can do all this kind of stuff, but it's not compelling, right? It's not something where you're like, oh, I really enjoy watching this and I feel informed. I feel like I have knowledge now. It's just elderly generation that's used to watching news that, your brain starts to break down, and they might be, some people who like Joe Biden and the Democrats, whatever it is, right? And it's a small amount of people, right? It's a couple 100,000 people. I mean, it's nothing compared to what the internet in terms of disseminating information. And like CNN gets nothing. Like they have, nothing in their tank. Like they have, it's unwatchable. Even if people watch it, they don't even listen because they go into some stoned like stupor from the, levels of stupidity that's coming out and just fakeness that's coming out of these people, in terms of their presentation and who they are and their energy and their spiritual essence and stuff. It's like, you can't like stay conscious and watch this. You have to somehow like have some sort of coping mechanism where you go into some deep catatonic state, like in some drug-induced state from the level of stupidity and suckiness coming from CNN, right? It's just, it's failed. Like they're pretending like people are still watching, but nobody is. Like they're pretending, oh yeah, we're still CNN, like what CNN used to be 10 years ago. And it's not that it didn't suck then, but it was the only game in town, right? I mean, even longer than 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But since the internet has taken over and you have real people bringing in compelling narratives that are outside of this force-fed, official story that they try to jam down your throats, and like you don't want any part of it, right? And so like there's now alternatives, and they can't compete. They can't cope. That's why they're always talking about internet censorship, right? And changing the logarithms and things so that they get viewers, but the viewers aren't going to stay because it's CNN, right? Like it sucks, especially the younger people. It's dead. Like you guys are corpses, just trying to babble about Trump and nobody cares. So I saw this ad on Facebook for one of Facebook's new VR devices and world they're creating. New shared realities are ready. Quest is ready. There's only one reality, right? But Mark Zuckerberg came out with all these VR type of, Facebook-related programs that they have in his presentation. And here's the newest one, Quest 2, hundreds of hit games, one-of-a-kind experiences, live events, new ways to stay fit, and growing community of users await you on Quest 2 for only $300. You get these controllers. You can stay fit. You can do exercises while in virtual reality. Like this is, they're pushing new versions of reality. So not to be outdone, I also saw this on Facebook. Snoop on the Stoop Christmas elf doll. So they've taken that crappy elf on the shelf and replaced it with this pot-smoking Snoop Dogg. So your kids can come and try to find where Snoop Dogg is getting high every day up until you put some money there, a little pizza, up until the Christmas. It's only $30, well worth it. Like there's purple, there's pink, there's a pink version, there's, green and purple. I mean, you got different types of, Snoop Dogs. He's not always wearing the same outfit. You can use your choice for $30. So we have that going on. Federal judge overturns Purdue Pharma settlement that left the Sacklers protected from suits, individual lawsuits. They walked away with $5 billion after taxes. The OxyContin epidemic ended up killing, something like 300,000 people or, 100,000, some, vast number of people. And the family walked away with a fortune. They paid $4.5 billion in a settlement, but they walked away with another $5 I mean, they made $5 billion on, that opioid crisis. And so I don't know if this is going to stick. I don't know if this will be overturned. I don't know if, this could end up being in the courts for a long time. But at least, this could be a good thing, right? This could be them. I mean, again, they should be in jail, But, at least there might be some more financial damages coming to them. So this is this guy, Charlemagne the God, and he's interviewing Kamala, the vice president, and this happened.
Sorry to interrupt.
They're acting like they can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh,
They're acting like they can't hear me. Oh, I can hear you. Oh, that's...
so who's the
I
real?
can hear you.
So who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlemagne.
I really.
Come on, Charlemagne. Who is it? Joe Biden or Joe Manchin or some horde of handlers and shadow government people? That would be like the real question to ask, right?
Come on, it's Joe Biden.
It's Joe Biden. She's telling it straight here.
Can't
No,
tell
no,
sometimes.
no.
No. No means no.
It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican.
Don't start talking like a Republican. Like, stop talking Republican talk. That's Republican talk, right? I don't think the Republicans are talking like that, right? So I go into the beast every day, but I also, meditate and connect to God and, do the heartfulness meditation, receive the transmission and cleaning, and are connecting on what I call the Ethernet, right? So I go on the internet and I go on the Ethernet. And there are these two opposing forces. There are the forces of human beings that are, what I call the controllers, who have had, 500 years of power here. I don't know how long it's been, but not that long, right? And their reign of, terror and deception is over, right? It's something that's ending, and they're desperate. And they're certainly not the only problem, because everyone's the problem. People have gone south. People have gone away from God, right? People have, de-evolved, right? Idiocracy. And so, it isn't like the controllers are the only problem, but they're the ones who are, in some ways pulling the strings of our system, right? This alternative reality that I call the beast, the beastly system. And they want dumber people, like you can see it, because everything's getting stupider. And the onset of the internet, where people were in their own, in their houses, not interacting and, not having normal lives, not having lives in the real world. They started building these alternative universes, which are very limited. Like cyber universes, even, is far less engaging than the three-dimensional world. No matter how good a video game is, you're not going to be stimulated as much as you are in three-dimensional reality. You're, in the real world. So you have these cyber worlds and you have all this information and people are staring at screens. And staring at a screen, you're not functioning on all levels. You're not functioning on an interpersonal level, on a, physical level, on a, you're not really engaged with real life. And so there is a complete, idiocracy happening from that standpoint, where people are just getting dumber and dumber. Their vocabulary, because of phones, the vocabulary that's used on phones where everyone's using abbreviations and, there's just a hemorrhaging of words, right, that people know and use on a regular basis. So in every way, the system is now pushing for a dumbed-down, de-evolved version of the human race. And so on the other hand, you have these, what's called the spiritual hierarchy in the heartfulness system, these divine beings, these disembodied souls that people would refer to as angels or any number of, devas. There's various, names for them in different cultures around the world. They have these higher developed souls that are overseeing what's going on this planet, the spiritual evolution, and administering God's will on this planet and other planets and, wherever it might be. And so what they want to do is bring people up to a higher level of divinity, sainthood, and have a society of saints, right? In history, the history of the world, there's always a few, handful of really higher developed souls, and then there's some number of, devoted people, groups of devoted people. And then there's just like everybody else that's, egotistical and not concerned about God, or just don't have the capacity, they're just too unevolved. And what the higher developed souls want is that everyone be on that top tier. You have a whole planet, a whole population of humans that are saints and are functioning, connecting to God internally, and are, manifesting divine systems, right? Systems that are in, harmony with God's will and divinity. And so you have these two polarizing forces, one trying to bring people down and one trying to bring people up, right? One is about de-evolution, one's about, evolution. And so on a spiritual level. And so, it's really a matter of which one wins out. And when you look at what I call the show, of course you're going to say, well, the the dumbed down version is going to win, but you can't see the work that's being done on a spiritual level, right? You can't see the divine movement that's happening because it's internal and people aren't able to fully express it or read it and see it in other people. But it is there. There is a, movement and a counter movement. And, at some point, people are going to go one way or the other. Like, this is going to be either way worse or way better here on this planet, right? I mean, there has to be like a moment of truth, right? The moment of truth is coming. And all these, people who are going in the wrong direction, like there's no place for them. There's going to be a huge die-off, right? A huge culling. Like you can see that in ways both sides want a reduction in the population here. And that's coming. I've said this before. And only higher developed souls will be allowed back in. Like that's one way to assure victory because, they have control of who gets to incarnate on this planet. Like that's, a big, in a sense, weapon in this war that the higher developed souls can, determine who's allowed to come back to planet Earth and become a human being again. Whereas, the people who run the planet, their power is limited to the planet itself. And so you can see in just one generation, reduce the population and then just let higher developed souls that are on board with this spiritual transformation back in. And then it's going to be like game over, right? But right now it seems grim. Like it just seems like, when you turn on the TV and you just, just flip through the channels or you go on the internet and you just see how stupid everything is and how whack it is, and just weird and depraved and going backwards and the lies and the suckiness and just pretending, right? The fronting, like this CNN, network, they're pretending like they're quality journalists and they're pretending that they have an audience, which neither is true, right? Like they don't have an audience and they're not real journalists. So everything's just an absolute joke. I mean, everything's just, remedial lies, like, lies that an awake child could see through. And the other factor is when, you're in such a deceptive system, a beastly system that's insolvent, it can't keep going, and just the moral depravity, that it's going to collapse of its own degradation, right? Like they can't sustain this. It's going to collapse because a system so, based in deception and lies can't, the system itself is like a lie. And so it can't be sustained. Like lies can't be sustained. Only things that are based in God and truth and in the flow of the universe can, last for a long time, right? I mean, nothing lasts forever, but things that are based in moral degradation and depravity and all these things and deception are short-lived, right? They can't go on for any, long sustained period of time. And so there's no energy to feed them, right? They're cut off from the source. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.